The office of the Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island has several functions, the primary one of which is to take the place of the governor should he or she not be able to serve. Among the ones we discussed with Sue Anderbois that pertain to the disabled population include accessible campaigning, the state as the model employer project, small business advocacy, and healthcare in Rhode Island. So today I'm honored to have as my guest candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Sue Anderbois. Okay, so, first topic that I always have, and it's the one I'm approaching first with everybody in every office, reminding you that 26% of Rhode Island voters have a disability. Okay, so I have a pledge for campaigning accessibly, holding events only accessible venues, etc.
Hmm.
I'd like to send that to you. I do ask people, it's a way of telling us we matter.
Yeah.
It's a way of saying, oh yeah, I've got to make sure I do this. All right.
Yeah. I would love to see that and I would love to sign it. That's really
Okay.
important. And I'm glad that you have that.
Great. Thanks. All right. So let's talk about Lieutenant Governor. There's a whole bunch of you running.
There are a couple of us running, but I'm excited to win the primary on the 9th and get to serve.
Okay. At least I am trying to get everybody that has a primary, I'm trying to get them in time. Yes. So the lieutenant governor, your job is, it serves on the Rhode Island Emergency Management Advisory Council. In fact, you chair that. The
Hmm.
Small Business Advisory Council, no, I'm sorry, the Small Business Advocacy Council. Again, that's something you would chair, as well as the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. And the office initiates legislation and assumes advocacy and leadership roles in several policy areas, such as
Hmm.
emergency management, veterans affairs, education, economic development, the environment, long-term care, healthcare, and elderly affairs. You also serve that office also serves as a liaison between citizens and state agencies,
Hmm.
which there are a lot, by the way.
Yeah.
As so in other words, if you get this job, you've got a full plate.
Yeah.
It is
Which
a
I'm excited
full-time
about.
job,
It's a
right?
full, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, let's look at the issue, your role in economic development. Okay.
Hmm.
That's a very important one for us, because the Lieutenant Governor is chair of the Small Business Advocacy Council. So in that, are you familiar with the State as Model Employer project?
I would love to learn more about the State as Model Employer
Okay,
Project. Can you share a little more about that,
okay.
Annette?
Well, the state is, it is a national effort, the National State Governors Association is behind it and all of that, so it is significant. And the model employer, says, the state is such a big employer.
Hmm.
It should be a model in hiring, retaining, promoting persons with disabilities,
Hmm.
giving people with disabilities as much opportunity as, as their talent requires,
Yeah.
or allows, I should say. So, I believe, the Council of State Governments and the National Governors Association have provided guidance for this. So if you does that make sense? Have you heard this? I don't know if you've,
I haven't heard of this initiative before, so one, I'm really
yeah,
glad to be learning about it, and we'll spend more time on it and more time
right.
learning. But this sounds like
Yeah.
something I would be really excited to work with you and work with others on to make sure we're fully implementing this. And one thing I'd love to share is, I've managed teams before at large organizations. And this type of work has always been really important to me, making sure that we have the protections in place for folks with disabilities who might have health challenges or might have other challenges, and that they're being supported to the fullest extent that they need and given whatever tools or allowances they need to
Mhm.
fully do their jobs, but also be fully human people who were people at the, at the end. Like that's the most important part, and
We
making
are
sure that
fully human people for
we are
sure.
human people, not just workers, and so to make sure
Right.
that our
Mhm.
workplaces reflect that and enable people to do their best work, but also are supported in being healthy and happy in the workplace as well, I think is
Yeah.
both great for people, but also people do better work when they feel respected and when they have the supports that they need to do their best work. So if that's remote work, if that's extra time to do work, if that's certain tools you might need, if that's, having your desk higher or lower, if that's like whatever types of supports you might need, if that's a little extra sick time, if that's, whatever it might be, that type of thing has been really important to me throughout my career when I've led teams and when I've managed teams. And worked at organizations before this, including city and state government. So just to say that is the exact kind of thing I would love to make sure I'm advocating for.
Well, that'd be good because we need a lot more representation in government. We need people with disabilities there somewhere in state and local governments. Um, because it is, and there are people that sort of represent us, but don't understand fully the lives we live
Yeah.
and how those lives are impacted, not just by our disabilities, but by other people's attitudes and willingness to, accommodate us. So this is a very important thing. And the state is a very, very large employer.
Yeah.
So we need people that can move up to leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there are many of us that could do that. I'm not
Yeah.
looking for a new job just in case. Um,
And
I'm,
it's important for folks to have those opportunities themselves and not just have other people speaking on their behalf. So if there's
right.
something getting in the way of folks like participating or
Mhm.
um, being hired or doing their jobs, I would love to make sure we're working to address those things to, maybe it
Okay.
is, I don't know what all the accommodations could be, but it's that kind of listening and hearing what people actually need and want. And I apologize if you can hear my dog barking. He has very large feelings about how rainy it is today.
Oh dear. Oh dear. What kind of dog?
He's a mutt. He looks like the dog emoji. I was just
Okay.
looking up because he was acting up and I was like trying to give him a look, like, stop it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, mine just kind of like, it's raining and you're not paying enough attention to
Yeah.
me.
I just had to convince him to go on a little walk before this because he was like, I don't know. I don't know about this rain.
Yeah. Let's see, mine is a lab, so you just like water. So, okay. So another area that, it's kind of related, but small business advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
We need people that are going to, continue helping small businesses become accessible,
Mm,
and make them understand that it expands their market as well as deepens their talent pool
mm-hmm.
if they're more accessible. And that seems to be a sticking point in Rhode Island. A lot of businesses just don't seem to get it.
Oh, that's
And
unfortunate.
there's, yeah. Um,
What are some of the common challenges that you face or folks in the community face when trying to interact with small businesses? What are some of the key barriers that they have? Is it accessibility to like get inside the businesses? Is it like, I won't presume
well,
to know. Are there, yeah.
well, recently, a friend of mine and I were meeting for coffee, and we had originally planned to meet earlier in the day, and it didn't work. So we were trying to find a place where we could meet after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I started calling different coffee shops because earlier I knew where to find them, the right ones,
Yeah.
but started calling coffee shops that were open after 3. And, are you accessible? Well, yeah, I guess you could say so. That step isn't too high.
Oh, yeah, not so much.
I got 3 of those responses before I found an accessible place. Um,
Yeah, that's huge because there
and
also aren't that many coffee shops open after 3. That's a
you're right.
real barrier too.
Exactly, exactly. Or the other thing that we run into is, well, nobody with a disability has ever come in here and said that that they couldn't get in here. What? Say
Yeah,
that?
they couldn't get in, then they weren't in there.
Right, exactly, exactly. And then, it seems to fall on deaf ears when we talk about what their what they have available to them in helping to make it happen. So,
Mm.
for example, removing barriers to access, whether it's accommodations for a small group or for a large one, or removing an actual barrier, um, there is a 50% tax credit up to $10,000. This is on the federal level. It's not in the tax code. It's actually in the ADA itself,
Oh,
but that is available. I try to give out the forms here. See,
yeah.
um, but there's that. And then in Rhode Island, there is also a $5,000 grant through the Department of Labor and Training for removing barriers for an employee.
Mm.
So I mean, there is a lot of help for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that, and this is one of the reasons I'm excited to serve at the state level, and this is what a lot of what how I've tried to be as a city councilor. I'm currently a city councilor in Providence. I find that government can be really complicated for people to navigate. And so would want to make sure I'm using, yeah, see your laugh. I would want to make sure I'm using the Small Business Advisory Council as also a place where businesses know that they can get this kind of information, that you shouldn't have to navigate like 8 different state agencies to like
Mhm.
understand all of the range of things that are available to you, to make your business, to make your business profitable, to make your business all the ways, but also accessible. Like if we have these programs already at the state level,
Mhm.
why are folks not using them? Like, do they have barriers? Do they just not know they exist? Are there things we need to take out of the way or make it easier to navigate so that they understand like the range of things and that it's
Right.
accessible to them? Because I find that some
Yeah.
people feel like they need a PhD in government just to like, you know,
Oh,
get
well, there
one
is that
grant.
too. There
Yeah.
is that too. But there's also the issue, that that those things are more excuses than anything else. I mean, the
Yeah.
ADA has been around for 36 years now.
Yeah.
There is an unwillingness. We hear a lot in Newport. Oh, well, this is an historical building, and they're like, okay, you have electric lights, yeah, you have running water, yeah. So where is
You've
the
got
line?
bathrooms.
Where is the
Yeah.
line on historical? Is it just a disability? Uh, but I do ask that. But one of the most historical buildings in the state is fully accessible, and that's the Redwood Library,
Mm-hmm.
and it's beautifully done. Um, the Tennis Hall of Fame has
Yeah.
really ramped up its access, and in ways that are that blend in nicely with the architecture, so it doesn't stand out. Um, is the same with the Redwood. So I mean, it's doable. It really
Yeah.
is. And I can tell you a story. I was in downtown Providence one day this past winter, and where I parked was in front of a sandwich shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there like, huh, Jeff's. I
Oh yeah.
remember when they were someplace else. And, when I worked in Providence, which was a long time ago, I'm wondering if it's the same,
Same Jeffs. Yeah.
same Jeff's. And so when I came out from my appointment, they were just starting to open up. And I asked the guy if they were the same one, and he said, yes, yes. He said, look, he said, I'm just opening up. So I haven't put the ramp out yet, but I have a ramp if you'd like to come in. I hadn't planned on buying a sandwich, but I bought two because he was so nice. It
Yeah.
makes a difference, when you're saying, you're as welcome as the next person,
Yeah.
you know, and I had just the opposite effect, opposite experience and something else. Um, because people don't understand that people with disabilities, we don't always travel alone. We have friends, family,
Yeah.
so you turn us out, if you
Yeah. You're
deny
losing
access to
everybody.
us, you've got a whole group. And a friend of mine had been visiting from out of town, and she figured, well, while she was in Newport, she would buy some wedding gifts for a wedding that was coming up. And she saw in a shop, oh, that'd be great, like that's something I'm looking for. And so I said, well, go ahead. And she said, well, aren't you coming in? And I said, well, no, I can't get in there. Oh, well, then neither can I.
Yeah.
that shop lost the business because she ended up buying her gifts back in Seattle when she went back instead of here.
Yeah.
So people don't think about that, you know.
Yeah. And it's important enough that just you couldn't get in. But people also need to realize, yeah, they're keeping out your friends and your family. And if a
Right.
restaurant can accommodate you, they're missing that whole table of people.
Mhm.
I think that's really important. A lot of my work in the city actually has been around safer streets and making our sidewalks and our streets safer for people of all abilities. Because right now it's really so focused on people driving cars. But I have a lot of residents who are saying, the sidewalks are not good, or we don't have enough time to cross the street. If you're not like a 20-year-old like athlete, you don't have enough time to cross North Main Street, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's even just things like let's extend the crosswalk times. Let's make sure we have, brightly painted crosswalks with like enough time to cross and like good signaling and that we're fixing the sidewalks near the places where people want to go because otherwise folks get isolated in their home. I mean, people know this,
Uh,
but a lot of folks don't think of it. Like people get isolated in their homes or they can't cross the street or Charles Gate is in my neighborhood. Folks at Charles Gate were telling me they felt like prisoners because they
mhm.
couldn't cross North Main even just to go to the McDonald's or to the Starbucks and get a coffee because it was too dangerous. There wasn't enough time to cross the road. So things
Yeah.
like that. And then it's better for everyone. Like no one wants to dash, even if you are a 20-year-old athlete, you don't want to dash across North Main Street, or
No,
whatever
no,
street
not
you want
there.
to have
Yeah.
enough time.
Right,
So it's stuff
exactly.
like that. I totally agree. And,
Yeah.
otherwise, the McDonald's, the whole, that whole shopping center was missing out on
Right.
business because folks couldn't, those aren't small businesses, but that's what's across the street there. But
Right.
they couldn't get
Yeah.
there.
Right. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is the case. And so understanding that small businesses, do need that extra guidance there and that
Hmm.
extra, help.
Yeah.
Um,
That's huge.
yeah. So that is again one of the issues that we face. So
Yeah.
again, though, the other part is businesses will say, well, the landlord. And the landlord will, be non-responsive, or somebody will be renting a space for a venue, and it's like, well, they're the ones renting it to me, so I don't have to be accessible. It's not for me. And the
Mm.
reality is the landlord is responsible, the business is responsible, and the event is responsible for access. They all have responsibility.
Yeah.
And if you want to say, well, the person that owns the building doesn't want to do something, well, you need to work that out in your lease because you are responsible to have your business be accessible.
Hmm.
So,
And
because,
that's a lot of just passing the buck then, as
well, yeah,
opposed to just
oh, there's
saying,
a
I'm
lot of
taking
past the buck.
responsibility for this. Yeah, I
Right.
want people to
Yes.
be able to come into my
Right.
business. I want to support,
Yeah.
everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we need a lot of assistance in pushing for that. So that's on that.
Yeah. Because
All
also to
right.
your point about the historic buildings, if someone was trying to rent a space and there was no bathroom or there was no lights or there was something else, they would advocate with the landlord of like, hey, I'm not renting this building until it has, XYZ thing, or I need
Right.
a parking space in the back for my employee, whatever the thing is.
Mhm.
And so you can it just feels like passing the buck to then
Yeah.
not advocate for
Right,
the
yeah, and
accommodations that folks
it's an
need.
excuse.
Yeah.
I hear people say, covered under the grandfather clause, and they're like, really, whose grandfather are we talking about? There
Yeah.
is no grandfather clause in the ADL.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, let's go on to one of the other challenges in your job description there. Healthcare access.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a nightmare right now.
Yeah.
We essentially have, well, we have a system that's more disabled than I am. It's really broken. Uh, they we have corporations that are
Mm-hmm.
running the healthcare because they're the only ones that understand the insurance or can have enough people to comply with the insurance. But there are a lot of antitrust issues. They're actually playing doctor or
Mm-hmm.
making healthcare decisions when they should not be. And that's both the hospital corporations, where we have like two main ones in the state, and very few small practices anymore, very, very few.
Yeah, very
And
few.
then at the same time, the insurance companies are there, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. And oh, well, we don't like that healthcare system, so we're not going to pay for that. So
Yeah,
you could go to this other, like it's very badly broken. So,
agreed. And we see, and you mentioned this, but just to highlight, we're seeing a lot of like VC firms, venture capital firms take over nursing facilities. We're seeing them take
yep.
over like a lot of these types of facilities. And that's
Right,
not then leading with care, that's leading with, having a profit margin for their shareholders.
exactly. Right,
And it's not putting Rhode Islanders first and the needs of Rhode Islanders and like the various,
right,
all the different things that we might need from that system. And it
right,
is very broken. That's something that I'm excited to be able to work on. And I've shared publicly, my first several years as a Rhode Islander, I didn't have a primary care physician. And I was lucky that nothing awful happened to me during that time, but I did break my ankle. I did have things happen to me, and it was hard to navigate the system without a primary care.
right,
Um, and we just don't have enough. And especially it gets as you have more and more complications or you have more and more illnesses,
right,
having access to the types of doctors you need, the type of facilities you need, the rehab facilities, and then like that knowing how to navigate it. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about for the long-term coordinating care council that the lieutenant governor's office helps lead is how do we make this more accessible for folks? How do we kind of unravel those noodles that's so hard to navigate where lots of folks are interacting with the long-term care system and hopefully one day we all interact with the long-term care system because it means we've lived long enough to be,
well,
interacting with this system.
well,
And
there is that.
we're just kind of
Yeah,
pretending like, oh no, we're not going to think about it, as opposed to let's
yeah,
make this work for everybody. Let's make this be something that when you're having this stressful time in your life where you have to interact with the system, where maybe you need to go into nursing facility or long-term care or
right
rehab
now,
or any
that's
of
not a
these,
very safe thing to do.
it's really not.
No, no, it's, and I'm kind of up there in age too, so but, hospitals don't even have proper lifting equipment.
Mm,
Again, it's the ADA is 36 years old. Some of them have some poor lists, but they may or may not know where to locate them when
hmm.
somebody needs it. There is not a single ceiling lift in most hospitals,
Really, not a
and
single one.
not none. And so which makes it very dangerous for people like me to go to any of those facilities
Yeah,
because I don't want to trust somebody lifting me because if I have a spasm, we're all on the floor and my
yeah,
body's already pretty broken, I'm not looking to make it any worse. Um, and I get told that it is oh well, it's a budget thing. If Medicare pays for two ceiling lifts in my house, I would think that a hospital emergency room
yeah,
and diagnostic imaging can have some ceiling lifts. I am
yeah,
pretty sure it is within the realm of possibilities.
yeah.
So,
These seem like solvable problems that we really need
right.
to make
Oh,
sure we have leaders in place who are pushing to actually solve them and not just complain or explain them away.
right. Yeah. Well, and that's it because most of the problems we have in this country are easily solvable. We have the resources.
Yeah,
It's a matter of will. You know? Like
yeah,
right now in healthcare, the issue is, if you have a look at a medical bill, you do not see a physician anymore. You don't even see a healthcare provider. It's a resource.
mm-hmm,
So we have taken the person out of that job, and you're a customer, not a patient.
yeah,
And you don't receive healthcare services, it's a transaction. And that says it all. And we
yeah,
need to change that. I know on the state level, there are some limits to what you can do. I'm also fighting for some bolder leadership on the national level. So, because we're the only country in the World Cup that does not have universal health care.
yeah.
Can
It's
you think
insane.
about that? only country in the World Cup. There were how many countries in that?
There's a lot. I don't know off the top of my head, but a lot.
It was over 40, I believe.
Yeah.
And we were the only one that does not have universal health care. It's not that we can't afford it.
Yeah.
It is not that we can't afford childcare. It is not that we cannot afford food for everybody. It is the lack of will,
Yeah. Because
you
not
know?
for nothing, the federal government has found the money to be bombing Iran for the last several weeks to the tune of
Yeah,
billions and billions of dollars. But when it comes time to feeding kids or having money for healthcare, like where is that money? And
right.
even on little things, like I've talked about this, I don't want to talk about North Main so much, but I'm just going to give one example. I've done a lot of safety work on this major road it's behind me, which is why I'm pointing that way. But um, in my ward, North Main Street, because we've had a lot of safety challenges there, and we've known what we need to do on North Main for like the last 30 years. Like there's all of these plans for what to do on North Main. And some of them were simple things like we have to work with RIDOT to have them extend how long we have to cross the street because it was set for like 26 seconds, but really that's like if you're an able-bodied 20-year-old who can sprint, like, what is it? What's the right amount
Yeah,
of time? And so now we've extended all of those crosswalk timings across the entire street. We've like changed the pedestrian walkway, but it really just took someone like just to take some credit, but like someone saying, "Hey, we actually just need to do this." And if people are upset about it, if people complain about it, I'll take the blame too, because
yeah,
Rideout was worried. Well, what if people start complaining that the signal times now are too long? When people want to turn, the signal time is too long. And I was like, just have them call me because I'll explain that it's to make sure people can cross the street without
yeah,
dying. Like this is important. But you need someone who's willing to say, I'll take the blame. Like give them my
yeah,
number and they can yell at me. It's fine. Um, because we've known so many of these problems are solvable. You just need someone to be like, okay, let's
yeah,
just fix
right,
this. Like,
right. Well, and it is the same for all the disability issues too, is that
mhm.
these are solvable. I
Yeah,
mean, disability is just another way of living,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, somebody gave me I mean, I've worked in the disability field for many years. But one of the definitions of disability that I really like is that it's a physiological variance,
Mm,
just like this, upon which entire political, social, economic systems are built, you know. And
fascinating. I've never heard it defined like that.
yeah, but it's true. Um, as an economist, I look at things like Rhode Island's poverty rules. Poverty rules are, you know, part of the disability policy in a lot of areas, but like how insane they are.
Yeah.
They make absolutely no sense whatsoever. And when they come down with this new work requirement for Medicaid, the rules are really going to hurt people that have been on Medicaid for a long time who, are not able to work 80 hours a week, but who also, because of these poverty rules, do not have any resources to fall back on either.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, that is something I take personally because that is, part of what I've had to live with.
Yeah.
We're not the problem. You look at there are people in Congress, people in the White House, that's your fraud over there. We're not the problem.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time micromanaging what we can and cannot have. That's a waste of your money as well. Waste
Yeah.
of state money doing that micromanaging. The truth is, if we were allowed to work to the best of our ability and keep our health care, we would be paying taxes.
Hmm.
We would be buying goods and services. Because we would by buying more goods and services, more people would be employed who would be paying taxes and buying more goods and services. In other words, people with disabilities would be economic drivers
Yeah.
instead of, being considered this burden that they have to manage and monitor all the time. And these poverty rules need to go.
Yeah.
This is not, I mean, like I say, the fraud and is not on us.
No, no,
Not
you're totally
overall.
right.
Overall, I mean, there might be some people, but overall, the big fraud is, in bigger in government,
Yeah,
in big business, those big companies that never paid back their PPP loans or that got them fraudulently
yeah,
and got them fraudulently and didn't pay them back. People in Rhode Island who got big bonuses when they could have used that money to help everybody lift up instead,
yeah,
provide more disability services. So, I mean, we have to be smarter about how we use our money
yeah. And when
and
we
more
spend so
inclusive.
much time trying to police just regular people trying to use the system as opposed to just like trusting that this is not where the fraud is, having reasonable amount of oversight, but not like the nickel and diming we do now.
Right.
Like there'd be more money for more folks, and we're just looking
Mhm.
in the wrong places for fraud.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Right.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, those are the ones, that's some of what's on my list. I mean, I think we need to not have veterans that are homeless. I mean,
100%.
they put it all on the line for us, and many of our homeless are veterans
Yeah.
and
And
people with disabilities,
that's just criminal. Like people have
Yeah,
put just in my mind, like in my heart and in my mind, like people have given everything for this country, and then they're sometimes they come back disabled, they come back with
right.
non-physical disabilities. They come back with all sorts of
PTSD
yeah,
and yeah, right,
PTSD, all these challenges, and those are everyone we should be wrapping our arms around in society, but especially folks who've sacrificed so much for us, and then
right,
for them to be
yeah,
homeless or not given special considerations is
right,
yeah. And just in general, I feel like as a policymaker now and someone who's worked in policy and government, policy is about how we care for our community. And so if we're not doing that kind of like community care and community thoughtfulness, like what are we doing? There are ways to do policy and there are ways to do like run a state, run an organization that take into account we're all people and we have different needs and abilities. And for us to participate, what do we need? Like I worked with someone on a team, and I'm not going to give a lot of details because I don't want to whatever. But um, they had a chronic condition that got worse in the heat, and so needed to take breaks in the afternoon, and then they worked more in the morning, and they worked more at night. It was like, that's great.
yep,
Just don't go be where you need to be between 2 and 5 when it's very hot, and then.
yep,
But like lots of places would have been like, oh, I'm sorry, these are the hours. This is when you have to be here. And it was like, there was
yeah,
no reason to hold that kind of line.
right, right, exactly. And for a number of people with disabilities, if you paid them per project instead of per hour,
Yeah,
you would definitely get your money's worth, and you might have built in the right flexibility for some of us. So, I know that for me, there are so many things, normal tasks in life that take me so much longer because of my disability. I'm self-employed, so I don't have to worry about my boss giving me a ration of, but anyway,
yeah.
although I have been known to say I have for a boss, but that's another story.
But you're on you. That's But yeah,
That-
so many things don't need to be like rush, rush, rush. Like so many things, if it's a
yeah,
project and it needs to be done in, X
yeah,
amount of
right,
time,
right,
just say do it whenever it makes sense for you.
right,
And
yeah, hmm,
sometimes it's a time accommodation, sometimes it's I've
yeah,
worked with someone else who needed to be elevated, and so we just got them a desk elevator. It's like what are the things you need? And
yeah,
sometimes it's something so like I won't say small because it's important, but something that you can just do. So just do
right,
it. Like,
yeah, right,
like we should just be solving these
yeah,
solvable problems instead of
yeah,
like, oh, sorry, you just have to be uncomfortable at your desk. Like,
yeah.
come on.
Most individual job accommodations cost less than $500.
Yeah,
And if you've got a great employee, it's worth it. Believe
it's
me,
worth it.
you know, we should be hiring the ability and accommodating the disability. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
agree.
um, we have a little more time here. Let's talk about emergency management,
Yeah, would love to talk about
especially,
emergency management.
especially, environmental disasters and stuff like that. Um, there was a bill pending in Congress. was originally introduced by Senator Bob Casey from Pennsylvania, who then did not get reelected, which is too bad. I liked him. Um, but I couldn't go vote for him.
Yeah,
So
it's tough when the
it's,
people you like aren't the ones you can vote for, and you're like, oh no.
yeah, yeah. So although we have a pretty
We
decent
have great.
delegation,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm not complaining about our
Oh, I'm not
current
complaining about our
delegation.
guys, but yeah.
No,
But I'm like a big
but
Elizabeth Warren fan. I'm like, can't vote for her. It's a bummer.
so one of the things in this legislation that he had promoted was that all emergency management, climate disasters, et cetera, the planning for it always had to include people with disabilities in the planning
Hmm.
stage. And when I read this, I was actually on a panel talking about the how disability justice and environmental justice are equal. You know,
Yeah,
they're very related. And I don't know, a few years back we had this natural gas crisis in Newport.
yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
right in the coldest part of the winter, we had no heat.
And people's pipes were bursting,
Yeah,
and
right.
that was a
And
disaster.
and when it happened, I'd be like, I can't go to a shelter. How would I go to a shelter? There's no way I could get on and off a bed, in and out of a bathroom or any of that stuff. So I immediately called the Marriott down the street and said, do you have an, well, we do for a few days. I'm on my way.
Yeah.
It's like a, and they did extend it right through as long as I had to stay there.
Oh,
I
that's
think it
great.
was about 2 weeks before it came back on. Um, but had I not known this,
Yeah.
what would have happened to me? What would have been done? I don't know. I mean, remember Katrina and what happened to all those people with disabilities who either drowned or, got, suffocated in a building or something like that because
Hmm.
they had no way out. So we need to have people with disabilities part of the planning.
Yeah.
Because when you do the planning, you're saying we can put X number of people here, we can do da, 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 and you don't think about not everybody moves the same way.
Yeah.
Not everybody, you know, can use that bathroom. Not everybody can get on a cot that's near the floor. I mean, those are things that need to be thought about. How do you evacuate people with disabilities? We don't exactly fit in any car either.
Yeah.
You know, um, so that all has to be part of, emergency management. And
Annette, I totally agree with this. And a part of my background I haven't discussed much with you yet, but is just the solvable problems issue. So I have done climate resilience planning across all of Rhode Island
yeah,
through a program called the Municipal Resilience Program, which I led when I was at the Nature Conservancy. It was in partnership with the Infrastructure Bank. And a lot of what we did was these local level, town by town resilience planning efforts. And we would ask the town, because the town, we would facilitate, but we would work with town leaders, say who needs to be at the table. And we would come with a list of like, these are the types of folks you need to invite. And every town is different with like who they have living in their town and things like that and what resources they have. We always said like a senior center, folks to understand folks with disabilities, because for all the reasons you just said, like what I think some people think of climate resilience and they think, oh, we'll invite the environmentalists and we'll invite,
right,
the land trust people. Great. Those people are great. I'm those people. I get it. But resilience is community and it's everything. It's all
right,
the things you
yeah,
just described.
right,
And we need to be prepared. And a lot of this, we know what's coming. Like we know
yeah,
what's happening now. And we have the
yeah,
models to see what kind of, storms we can expect, what kind of, we know it's a possibility to lose gas. Like we know these are things that are in our hazard mitigation plans at the city and state level. Like we've done the planning, but like how are we making sure people know what the plan is, that we've accommodated for everybody, and
yeah,
that there's plans in place? Because otherwise we're leaving people out, and we're leaving out
right,
like our most folks with
vulnerable,
challenges, our most
right,
vulnerable people
right,
who we
yeah,
should be focused on first.
right, yeah,
Because the systems that
yeah,
work for our most vulnerable will also work for everyone. So we should both be
yeah,
focused on them because they're important, and if it works for them, it works for everybody. And so that has been a big focus. And I think something that's
Yeah.
been lacking in statewide emergency management.
Right.
Um,
It is. And I'm one that comes as a twofer because I'm
yeah.
not only the person with a disability, but I am an environmental economist too. So,
Oh,
you
amazing.
know, that's my
It's good when you can
education.
wear multiple hats in a
Yeah,
meeting, you're
that's
like, and now I'm this.
that's my education. And I know people that work at the Nature Conservancy too.
Oh,
So
I bet we have friends in common then.
we probably do. Yeah. So, but it's part of the whole, we need to be aware of that. And we need to do some long-term planning too on sustainability.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure you're familiar with 11th Hour Racing.
Yep, I love them. They've
Okay,
done great
okay.
work.
Yes, they've done amazing work. And of course, Save the Bay.
Love
Um,
them. Yeah.
yeah. So in fact, this Saturday is their 50th swim.
It's their 50th swim. Oh my
Yep,
goodness.
yeah.
Oh wow, that's wild. Um,
Yeah,
time is crazy. Yeah, but
right,
we also
yeah,
need better long-term plans for a lot of this stuff. Or like have
right,
spent a lot of my career in energy policy in addition to environmental work. And we don't really have long-term plans for our energy system. We're allowing the utility to really
right,
make those plans for us. And it's
yeah,
being done in a way, like we were talking with healthcare, that helps their bottom line, not
right,
necessarily Rhode Islanders. And I just had an issue with my constituent a few weeks ago. She called and said, "Hey, the utility shut off my energy." It was right before that big heat wave we have. She was like, "I
yeah,
don't understand. I thought I had filled out all the paperwork. I'm older. My husband has a disability, but they shut us off, even though I thought we had filled out everything to avoid the shut off. But quietly, the rule had changed, and the shut off moratorium is only for the winter, even though it's extremely dangerous to be without electricity in the summer.
yeah,
And we got her electricity turned back on. But in the meantime, really discovered it wasn't being seen as the same kind of emergency. And people weren't taking into account, like one of the things she shared with me was her husband is legally blind. And when it gets really dark, which it was getting dark in their home because they didn't have electricity, he can't see as well. Like it's too shadowy. He can see a little bit, but when it's too dark,
yeah,
he can't. And so he took a few tumbles, which is extremely dangerous if you're older
yeah,
or disabled. And so we got the electricity turned back on pretty quickly. But it's that kind of thing. Like we need plans in
yeah,
place for both like our energy system, but also how we make sure that folks who really need the energy have it especially at these times where you really need it, when it's dark, when it's
right,
hot, when it's cold, like
right,
but we don't have that
right.
right now, and that's one
But
of the
we
things I want
also
to work
have
on.
to understand how the grid works too.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard Sheldon Whitehouse does a really good presentation on how, if you can, the grid should be set up, and in many places it is. So the cheapest energy is what you get used first.
Yep.
So it's only, at peak times you end up tapping into the higher costs. And so, you know, the wind and solar power are
Yeah,
really,
it makes it cheaper
critical.
for everybody.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And there are ways we can do this. Is like a lot of what I've worked on. We don't do this well in Rhode Island, but other places do this well, where like because it's so much more expensive when everyone's using electricity, there's ways that you can incentivize folks to like use energy at different times if it's not an
yeah,
emergency. So like,
okay,
I don't have
yeah,
to run my dishwasher at 2 p.m. whenever, when that's the peak time for energy
right,
use in the state.
yeah, right.
But like
Let's
we
see.
need those
I think that
signals.
was in my behavioral economics course.
Yeah. Yeah. I took behavioral economics when I was getting my MBA, but like it's like one of those things like you have to give people the signal for how to
Yeah,
actually
right,
behave. Yeah.
right, yeah, right, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So we also need, from the healthcare point of view too, and
Hmm.
disability point of view, is, there are now um, ways to take care of some of the single-use things that we have. Now,
Hmm.
in healthcare and in disability, there are a lot of single-use, things like catheters, bags, things
Yeah.
like that. But I saw um, a company just last month, just a few weeks ago, actually. Um, yeah, I'm a big tennis fan, and I was at the tournament at the Hall of Fame,
Oh, nice.
and there was a company there It was started by a couple of engineering students who were also tennis fans and said, like, if you have a tournament, there are boxes and boxes of used racket strings
Oh.
because they restring rackets frequently during a tournament because they want to keep that right,
Oh
that
yeah, like right
right.
tension and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right. So they have taken these strings and turned them into the softest polyester ever
Oh
and made
wow.
shirts out of them.
Very
So,
cool.
and 11th Hour gave them some space at the, a booth space at the tournament there. So, um,
Oh,
because,
that's really cool.
yeah, because sports are a good way to address environmental issues. You can get that impact because everybody's involved in some sport somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know the Hall of Fame does a big thing on sustainability. They're really, vendors are not allowed to sell food in containers unless they're compostable or can be reused and stuff like that. I mean, they've no more plastic bottles, there's hydration stations and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, they
That's so
gotta get
important.
that. Yeah. So all of these things work together and it's good. But if we can do that with tennis strings, why can we not do that with medical supplies?
It's a good question.
We have a lot of single-use plastics that are needed for people with disabilities, but we now need to turn that into a sustainability project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could see us like working with, really some of we have amazing universities also in the state. We've got URI, we've got Brown, we've
Yeah.
got Rick, we've got Bryant. I'm
Yeah.
not going to name them all.
Yeah.
Roger Williams, all like, I
Mhm.
could see this being an amazing thing to even task with like some of the, like competition for students or business school students or
Yeah.
sustainability students. Like, how do you work together to take on some of
Yeah.
these issues
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah.
really help enable some of the solutions they find?
Yeah. Right. I know URI has a great school of engineering, a really,
Yeah.
really good college of engineering. Yeah.
Because that's the great thing about Rhode Island is we have so many of the resources we need to get this kind of stuff done, and we just have to get out of the way. We have to
Okay.
enable
There
it.
you go.
We have to
Yeah.
invite folks into the state house. We have to get out of the way, and that's Kellyanne and I, my campaign manager, and I talk about this all the time. Like, as we're talking with folks across the state, we're like, this person knows like the thing we need to do on education, or like I've done a lot in clean energy. I know so many folks who work in energy policy who live in Rhode Island, but actually do all their work outside of Rhode Island. And I'm like, this
Mm,
is crazy. Like, we need this knowledge. Let's
right.
get out of their way. Let's let them like do that work here and like not have all these barriers, or not make it too confusing or complicated to like, let's invite these people into into the state house or, enable students to be looking into these issues. We have so much brilliance here. We should really be leveraging it.
Yes, we should. We should. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, I thank you for this conversation. Thank you for listening to this conversation with Sue Anderbois, candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island. Now, as listeners to Nothing Without Us, you can participate in the Crip the Vote sub-series. Let me know what candidates you want to hear from. What do you want them to know? What questions do you want answered? And let me know if you would like to join me in that interview and information session. Nothing Without Us should be a place for many voices to be heard. Now, while I think I'm pretty much in touch with disability issues, I'm sure some of you will think of things that I do not. So if this is to be a lively community, and it should be a community, then you should have a seat at this table. It is through empowering ourselves that we will be able to protect our rights. So let's do it. Now you can tell me in the comments who you want to hear from, what questions you want asked or issues discussed, and if you would like to join in this interview. Let's make all of our voices heard. At this time, I am trying to get as many candidates in before the Rhode Island primary as I possibly can. The focus of these discussions will be about disability and how laws and policies affect us. I have published a pledge to accessible campaigning that is posted on Patreon. Please download it and give it to every candidate you encounter. Let them know that the disability population comprises 26% of their voters and that they need to consider this when campaigning. That's at least 1 in 4 of their voters. Signing it will tell that 26% of voters that we matter. It will also indicate that they do not pick and choose which laws to uphold, a quality we'd like to see from our representatives in government, yes? So most of all, please remember that your superpower, whether you have a disability or not, is voting. Even if you've never voted before, this year is critical. Many of our rights and disabilities are in jeopardy. If you are in Rhode Island, August 10 is the last day to register to vote in the primary. September 9th, which is the primary. Sorry. If you are in Rhode Island, August 10 is the last day to register to vote in the primary, which is September 9th. If you have not already done so, please contact your local board of canvassers and make sure you register in time. If you are seeking a mail-in ballot for the primary, you must request it by August 19, 2026. The primary early voting and emergency ballot period is from August 20th, 26 to September 8, 2026. So thank you for listening. I'm Annette, and this has been Crip the Vote, a sub-series of Nothing Without Us. Please subscribe to this podcast. Even free subscriptions will give you access to all the regular and important episodes, including the entire Crip the Vote sub-series. Share this podcast, make comments. I read them all. So while basic subscriptions are free, there are benefits to paid memberships, including early access to some postings, special postings only available to paid members, and a monthly live episode to those on the activist tier. My goal is to make this a lively community where voices will be heard. You now have the option to purchase memberships on an annual basis rather than just on a monthly basis, and you can gift a membership to someone else. Now, I do all the writing and the editing and the posting, as well as managing the technology for this podcast. It's been a solo operation. But in order to make it grow and to get more topics on and have more interesting guests, I do need some help with this. So please subscribe. And if you are able, help support this podcast with a paid membership. I will really be grateful. Telling your friends about it helps as well. Let them know that they can find this podcast at patreon.com/nothingwithoutus and on YouTube and Spotify. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. So until the next Nothing Without Us, I'm Annette.